Henry Cavill was supposed to be the Man of Steel, but now he's trading Krypton for a blade, an immortality that drives you with every century you survive. Russell Crowe isn't just along for the ride, he's stepping in as Cavill's mentor, in a story where living forever might be the cruelest fate of all. Today we're breaking down direct quotes, Amazon's high-stakes gamble, and why Stahelski's vision could make this the darkest Highlander yet. If these story-driven deep dives keep you ahead of the curve, hitting like and subscribe truly helps fuel the channel. Welcome to Screen Scramble. Let's dive in. Why this reunion matters. It's been over a decade since Henry Cavill and Russell Crowe last shared the screen. Back then, Crowe wasn't just trying to save his newborn from Krypton's demise. He was leaving behind a living echo, an AI so vividly of himself it could teach Kal-El to become Superman long after he was gone. But even that ghost of a father was eventually torn away, leaving Cavill's Superman to build his legacy without the voice that had shaped him. Fans never really got to see what those two powerhouse actors could do if they had more time, more tension, more conflict, more heartbreak. Now Highlander gives them that chance. Stripped of capes and superheroes, just steel and centuries of regret. They're not playing father and son anymore. They're immortals tied by a bond that could twist from mentorship to rivalry in a single heartbeat. Imagine Crowe looking at Cavill and seeing all his past failures mirrored back at him, the weight of choices that still echo through time. Picture Cavill stepping forward with that same fierce resolve he once showed as Superman, now sharpened by centuries of loss, wearing scars instead of hope. It makes you wonder how far trust can stretch when you've lived long enough to watch every oath eventually break. How many times has Crowe's character shaped warriors, only to one day face their blades across blood-soaked sand? What does it do to loyalty when memory becomes fogged by betrayals, when every promise erodes into dust? It's the kind of reunion that doesn't feel forced. It feels inevitable, like this was always waiting. A darker, more dangerous stage for Cavill and Crowe to explore what it means to carry lifetimes on your shoulders, haunted by regrets that refuse to die, bound by a curse neither asked for, yet powerless to outrun. In the end, it's not just about who survives, it's about who keeps surviving even when every century feels like another wound. The characters beyond Lambert and Connery. Most people still picture Christopher Lambert's hollow stare or Sean Connery's sly grin when they hear the word Highlander. The original mixed gritty swordplay, neon streets, and rock anthems into something stylish, campy, and unexpectedly sad. Now Marissa Abela, best known for channeling Amy Winehouse in 2024's Back to Black, joins Cavill and Crowe in Highlander's immortality, though we still don't know her role. And with Chad Stahelski, the John Wick architect, rebuilding these characters, this legend is set to become far more haunting. Connor MacLeod is being rebuilt as a man who's lived 5 entire centuries, long enough for love to become a liability and every friendship to turn into a ticking clock. Cavill isn't treating this like another tragic hero cliche. He's leaning into the horror of outliving everything good, of watching history keep marching on while your own heart grows heavier with every face you bury. According to Variety, Russell Crowe will be playing a seasoned immortal warrior who serves as the mentor to the lead character played by Henry Cavill. But Crowe doesn't play neat archetypes. He might be as damaged and dangerous as the man he's teaching. Picture a centuries-old killer who's guiding MacLeod not because he wants to pass on wisdom, but because he needs someone strong enough to finally challenge him, or even end him. It's mentorship sharpened by old sins and darker intentions. That sets this apart from the friendly camaraderie of Connery's Ramirez. This is mentorship twisted by time, by grudges so ancient even they can't fully remember how they began. What Stahelski is really building. Yet in our first Highlander video, we dug into why Chad Stahelski spent nearly a decade fighting to make this film, and how he ultimately left Lionsgate when they refused to fund his full vision. But what was he chasing that was worth risking the whole project? Stahelski's talked about loving worlds that feel 5 degrees off reality, where everything is slightly askew, familiar, yet unsettling. In John Wick, he built an underworld where assassins operated by sacred codes. Every handshake carried lethal weight and violence felt like ritual. Now, he wants to do that for immortality. Imagine a world where stepping into an abandoned church isn't about sanctuary. It's about confronting debts written in blood 400 years ago. Think of these immortals drifting through crowded streets, knowing every new building stands on the bones of battles they once fought. Stahelski isn't here for mindless decapitations. He wants to show how living forever becomes its own kind of prison, how you carry old grudges like rusted chains, and every blade drawn is a desperate reach for release. That's why he was willing to walk away from a studio that wanted to shrink his vision, because Highlander isn't just sword fights, it's about what happens to the soul when time won't let you go. Why Amazon is betting on this? Amazon MGM didn't scoop up Highlander to fill out a release calendar. They're building something deliberate. A slate of genre worlds that feel raw, adult, and cut from a darker cloth than Disney ever could. They've already locked in Warhammer 40k with Cavill, revived Masters of the Universe, and are developing Voltron. Highlander slides perfectly into that strategy. A story soaked in violence and old myth, designed to haunt audiences long after it's over. Crowe recently said, "Joining Henry on this is going to be something special. We've wanted to work together again for a long time. Now we get to do it with swords." That isn't just promotional fluff. It's two seasoned actors gearing up to explore something harsh and likely heartbreaking. And if you want the full story of how Amazon outmaneuvered Lionsgate after they balked at funding Stahelski's dream, we broke that all down in our first Highlander video. Definitely check that out after this. Amazon doesn't need Highlander to be a billion-dollar Marvel clone. They're betting it's their next dark anchor, with scars and regrets echoing across future stories. It's less about world domination and more about crafting a corner of cinema that's theirs alone, and letting that dark legend breathe. Can this reboot succeed where others failed? Most reboots fail because they chase visuals without heart. Total Recall, RoboCop, The Dark Tower. All flashy reboots stacked with big effects, hoping spectacle could mask the hollow core underneath. They promise nostalgia, toss out a few clever callbacks, and rely on your memories to fill in the gaps. But by the time the credits roll, it's like being handed an ornate box, only to crack it open and find it empty. Highlander was always different. Even at its most neon and over the top, it was about men cursed to keep living. Every friend became a heartbreak waiting to happen. Every romance a slow-motion tragedy. That's what made it stick. Not the sword fights or lightning flashes, but the idea that immortality was the cruelest fate of all. That's why this new gamble matters. Cavill isn't stepping in to look untouchable. He's wearing centuries of grief like a cloak, trying to remember why he still bothers to draw his sword. Crowe brings that same battered weight, the look of someone who's lost so many kingdoms and comrades that trust feels more like a gamble than a gift. Imagine how many students he's trained over the centuries, only to see them one day raise a blade against him. What does loyalty even mean when you've lived long enough to watch every promise sour into regret? Stahelski isn't filming duels just for spectacle. Each clash might be a plea for understanding, or a desperate hope that someone will finally end the burden of living. If they lean into that, Highlander won't just revive an old franchise, it'll become the legend it was always meant to be. A story etched in scars, echoing with quiet human sorrow, reminding us that sometimes living forever is the harshest death of all. The cost of immortality. Because that's the deepest horror of Highlander, isn't it? Not the fear of losing your head, the fear that you'll keep waking up tomorrow. Immortality sounds like a gift, until you realize it's just a cruel guarantee that you'll outlive everyone you ever dared to love. You become a ghost in your own life, drifting from century to century with memories that sharpen instead of fade. Imagine McLeod staring at a painting of a woman whose name he can't quite recall, details blurred by too many lifetimes. The shape of her face is familiar, almost tender, but when he tries to remember her laugh, it's just silence. Picture Crowe's immortal standing in a church where he once knelt, only to find it's now crawling with tourists snapping photos, blind to the centuries of sorrow in these walls. Stories like Interview with the Vampire or The Old Guard scratched at this wound, but Highlander might finally rip it wide open, because Stahelski isn't chasing some bright victorious ending. He's crafting a legend so heavy with loss that each clash of steel becomes a whispered confession, that living forever might be the slowest, cruelest death of all. It's not the fear of dying that haunts these immortals. It's the quiet terror of surviving long enough to watch the entire world turn to dust around you. So what do you think? Will Crowe and Cavill finally give Highlander the dark, aching tragedy fans have waited decades for? Or is this just another legend destined to fade? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't seen our first Highlander breakdown, the one that reveals exactly how Amazon pulled this out from under Lionsgate, that's on screen now. And if you're following Cavill's new era with Amazon, our deep dive on Voltron's surprising streaming gamble is also up. Subscribe for more story-driven deep dives every Thursday. We break down the twists that keep these worlds alive. And until next time, scrambled out.